coming up next, we are going to have our Fireside Chat. And the topic of this Fireside Chat is AI-powered business, transforming enterprise for tomorrow. So our panelist is going to explore what it means to be an AI-enabled organization and the key elements necessary to harness the power of AI effectively. And they're also going to share with us their insights on the best approaches to leveraging AI. So first, I would like to invite the moderator of this session. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Dan Wong, CEO of Give.ed. Let's welcome Dan. Hello. You want to come up here? And also, I would like to invite our panelists, including Mr. Michael Yu, Managing Director and General Manager of Google Hong Kong. Welcome, Michael. Should we all give him a big round of applause? Wow, to welcome them. And finally, let's welcome Dr. Seth Huang, Chief Investment Officer and Head of AI Strategies of Microbit Capital Management. Welcome, Seth. All right. And without any further ado, I'll pass the stage to Dan. Over to you.
Great. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Fireside Chat about the AI-powered enterprise. And for this, we have we're very lucky to have two distinguished panelists. And right next to me is Michael. Michael is MD of Google in Hong Kong. And for some of these who know, this kind of a development in terms of generative AI has been driven by a technology framework pioneered by Google called the Transformer. So all the stuff you're seeing right now that's coming out is very much driven by this. Michael has been front and center of seeing how organizations big and small adopt and use AI. So we're very, very lucky to have Michael come in and share some real insights with us. Seth is a PhD. He's a professor. He's a book author. He is running his own AI plus fintech company. He previously was also director of one of the AI labs at Huawei, right? So again, very, very broad experience applying AI, but also combined with fintech and technology. And so I think we have between both Michael and Seth, we have very broad coverage in terms of what it means to be an AI powered organization. And I think before we start, we have three questions, if you will, to get a read of the audience. So please take out your phone. Okay, so please take out your phone. Take the Slido, and we're going to take a quick survey, all right, about basically to what degree your organizations are using AI. So we're going to have three quick questions. If you take out your phone, scan this one. We're going to go with three questions, and we're going to use that to then engage in our discussion today. So if you can please scan that, and maybe let's get the questions up on the screen for everybody. So can we have the first question, okay? All right, so here's the question. How many of your companies are experimenting with AI? Yes or no, easy question. So please kind of go in there and let's take a look what it looks like. I would expect it should be a fairly high percentage, but let's take a look. How many here, your company's already using AI? All right, it's getting to 80%. Okay, so any more time to vote? 30 more seconds? All right, okay, it just keeps increasing. Okay, right around 80%. Okay, has everybody finished entering? Okay, all right. How about second question? Second quick question, if we can flip over. Let's come to the second question. Okay, voting closed, go to the next question. Okay. Now, personally, okay, not your company, personally, how many of you are personally using AI without necessarily telling your company or colleagues are you a secret cyborg, okay? And rest assured, this is completely privacy protected. We don't know who you are. Just open panel, you can say it like it is, okay? And you'll be safe, but we want to use this chance to really get a feeling for kind of how many of you are personally using this one. And look, it's even higher than the company. So clearly, there's something going on here. I must say, just personally being involved, like many of our panelists here today, being involved with AI for these past 10 years, this is the first time I think. I mean, in the past, for AI, you need a bit of technical background to even try it. And so in general, it's been more organizations moving first with AI and then personal, right? I think in this wave, it's actually the opposite. In many, many cases, we see individuals now, using technology before their company adopts it for many good reasons, which I think we might be able to explore today. But it's quite interesting times that we're in. Okay, so I think we're finished voting. Using it, 77%. Okay, all right, so, okay, let's close the vote, and then let's go to the third and final question. All right, so if we can put the third and final question on there, that'd be great, okay? And this next question is not yes or no. It's actually more kind of you think of a word, okay? What is that word? If there is one word you would choose to describe what you think an AI-enabled organization should be, just write that word. Put that word in Slido, and we're gonna collect all the responses for everybody. This is gonna be very interesting. This is not like a multiple choice or yes, no. It's in your mind what is, okay, survivor, okay? Yeah, there's a lot about survival and not being disrupted. Okay, so let's kind of keep this open, and we're gonna have a word cloud here. And this is gonna let us respond to the sentiment in the room, okay? And I think in some ways this is the most interesting question of the three today, okay? Let's keep going. Wow, the biggest one is amazing, all right? It's interesting, that's an emotional word. Not functionality, not business value, but what I'm seeing is amazing. Okay, then efficient, okay, all right. Advanced, all right. We're going to keep this open. I see there's some people still typing in. Let's give this maybe like another 10 seconds or so. Please kind of get your word in. Pretty good. Oh, look at that. I haven't seen this. Okay, all right. Interesting. Very interesting. I haven't quite seen this either. Okay. All right. Okay, 5 more seconds. I see people still putting it in. Okay. But right now, the 3 big ones are efficient, advanced, amazing. Actually, that's a new word. I don't often see. Okay, so these are the 3. All right. Okay, how about this? So let's close the poll right now, and that's the work coming from all of you, right? Some of you having been using AI yourself in your organizations and personally, some not. So let's respond to that, okay? So I think in the coming, I think we have about 40 minutes or so. I'm going to leave some time at the end for all of you to ask questions, any question you want. But based on that word cloud and questions, I maybe want to kind of focus our questions around 2 areas, right? The first broad theme is just kind of what is this AI-powered organization? Then the second theme is that how do we extract business value from this, right? 2 very relevant questions. So let's start with the first theme, right? Which is the broad theme. So I think the question to both of you, right, is if you were to think about an AI-enabled organization, what are the types of, let's say, conditions you need? Whether it is skills, it is culture, process, governance, all of these things put together. How would you describe this AI-enabled organization? What the elements of that would be the first broad question. Who wants to start? How would you describe an AI-enabled organization? You want to go?
Yeah, maybe I'll take a start. So first of all, a huge thank you to all of you for joining our panel. It's really great to be here, and thank you, Dan and Seth. It's great. Look, when I think about an AI-enabled organization, I really think about how AI is not just a tool, but it's ultimately integrated into pretty much everything that you're doing. And I do think a lot of that starts with really good data and understanding what you can use it for. And I know when we were talking just backstage right now, we talked a little bit about data. We talked about ensuring there's business value. But I think that would be the one thing I would start on is it's not just a tool. Like today, I think it's very much a tool. But I think the best companies in the world have found a way to integrate this into everything. If I can use Google as an example, we use it for forecasting, and it's helping to drive business decisions. It is helping to improve recommendation engines to ensure more helpfulness to all of the users that use our products. If you look at even our latest launch of Google Translate in Cantonese, that is helping to deliver on that promise of a more useful experience for the 80 million users that speak Cantonese and use our products around the world. So these are just some of the small examples of how we're weaving that into everything that we're doing.
Really interesting. I'm going to tap into that in a bit, but why don't, Seth, you go ahead. What would you describe as an AI-powered organization? What are the conditions needed?
I was just speaking to Dan and Michael about this book I just finished. It's Elon Musk biography, and there's something called the Elon Musk algorithm. And the first rule of the algorithm is to question everything. So question every single process, part of the process, and every single step. And I think an AI-enabled organization sort of taps into that idea. You have to deconstruct what you do every day. Like, for example, if you go to a morning meeting, you can ask, why is the morning meeting necessary? Or meeting minutes. Why is meeting minutes necessary? Because no one ever reads it. Why do we need extra manpower to do meeting minutes? Maybe that can be taken over by artificial intelligence. So for a time, I just turn on Zoom and have the AI coming from Zoom just to summarize the meeting and send it to the key stakeholders. So I think an AI-enabled organization has a very keen awareness about the work process, and it can attack every single component and try to find the most annoying and most time-consuming part that can be replaced with technology. Because when I was at Huawei as an AI researcher, as Dan described earlier, the biggest trouble in adopting AI is in the beginning, you're always adding more work for the team because you need data. But a faster way to go about this is to ask employees anonymously, what is the most annoying part about your job? And you just prioritize what most people find annoying and see which part of it can be replaced by, in this case, maybe Gemini or ChatGPT. And just the most recent case for me, because I go to a lot of conferences. Yesterday I did a talk, and half a dozen people reached out to me through email or LinkedIn after the talk. And so I was introduced by this and that, so usually I would write, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for your email, blah, blah, blah. That will usually take me like 45 minutes to do. But this time, since I'll be writing the same email, but with a slight different ways every time, I just let ChatGPT do it. But that doesn't mean it's not individualized. So I got a template, and I would just go in and try to study that person and better use of my time rather than thank you for the introduction, which would take me 3 seconds to write. So that's 3 seconds saved right there. So I think if you are very aware of how you spend your time and what troubles you the most on a daily basis, you can save so much time from work by using technology. And I think I was saying yesterday that humans, me included, I don't need incentive to be lazy. I would love to be lazy. I would love to not do the boring work. And that part of the work can be replaced by AI in this case.
Yeah, maybe I can build on that, because I think you touched on the organization culture. I think it's a great practice, I think, to question the process and all the different points that actually maybe technology can help. But I also remember from our survey there, almost 80% of this group out here is using the technology but doesn't feel safe enough to actually showcase and share how they're improving their own productivity within the organization. So as a leader, when I see that, I'm concerned. I think it's great that all of you are experimenting with the technology and improving your own skill set of how to use this. But I would also encourage any of you who are leaders to role model how you are injecting AI into every bit of your process as well. So I'll give you an example. Even in preparation for this panel, I was having a discussion full on actually with Gemini. Right? I talked about the conference, what it was about. I talked about some of the theme questions. I talked about some of the areas that Google was thinking about, but also to make it more relevant, to help generate some ideas. And I think that's important to also share with my organization on Monday when I get back, because we have all hands every Monday, just to role model a little bit about how you're using this technology yourself, right? So that it's not something where we're like cheating, but it's something actually that's just really integrating, and we're all learning together. And I think that will also speed up the learning within the organization and increase the chances of driving breakthrough or hitting that tipping point within the organization. I hear a lot about organizations where they've subscribed, I think, to the AI add-on, right? So for our workspace teams here, we've got Gemini actually add-on for all workspace customers already here in Hong Kong. We encourage usage, and it could be as small as generating an email or a response, or as big as formulating and helping help alongside with some of the strategy brainstorming, to complement that with the team.
And I'm going to maybe summarize a little bit some of the themes that you're bringing out in terms of kind of the detailed parts around this organization, right? We're talking about culture now. So to use AI properly, you're saying, okay, there's a certain kind of culture that's needed. Seth, you talked about the way to think about it, right? I think kind of Elon Musk method is actually called first principles, whereby you're questioning everything. Okay, so I think, AI being kind of this general purpose technology, right? So different than some other technologies that sometimes are more focused towards a particular use case or function, AI is almost everything. So I think a bit what you said is, okay, now it's forcing us to think broadly, first principles and everything. So there's a second piece there in terms of first principles thinking. Then the third piece, also a bit more technical, is, okay, look, you're trying it, but to get the value of AI, you need to put in some earlier work to get the data. And sometimes that could be a pain, right? And so maybe it doesn't have to be these three, right? But I think it might be worthwhile in this first part to kind of maybe say a bit more around these three areas. And maybe I'm going to add a fourth as well. I think, Michael, you said, don't think about AI as a tool. And that's an interesting perspective, because normally when we think about technology, it's a tool, right? But I think what you're saying is that you need to kind of approach it in a different way. And on this one, I'm going to throw something in, okay? I heard somebody say that actually it is not correct to think about AI as a tool. Actually, think about AI as a coworker, actually. And that's the way you add intelligence, quote unquote, into your organization. There's a narrative that says, okay, in the past, if you're an organization, if you want to add intelligence to your organization, you have two choices. You either spend some money bringing more people, or you increase the efficiency, which was one of the words that was kind of in the word cloud, right? And so I guess there is a question here, is AI a bit different in nature? It is not just a tool. But if it's not just a tool, then how we think about applying it, right? So we don't have to go in that order, but I think there are a couple of themes I'm teasing out from this, right? Around culture, around the mindset around thinking first principles, around things like, how do I address it? Is it a tool or something else? And if it's something else, right, how do we think about it? So maybe I throw that back, kind of not completely structured to both of you, to pick any one and go maybe a step deeper. What's required here, right? All of us are working in organizations. What can we take away to help, right, kind of them deploy AI within their organizations? So open it up. You can pick any one. You can talk about culture. You can talk about, hey, how to think about it as a tool. You can go a bit deeper in terms, okay, first principle, think, how do you go further, including your example, right? Ask people the annoying stuff anonymously and get that moving, right? So maybe back to both of you.
Okay.
Beth?
I wrote a manifesto for my own team. Of course, we are a hedge fund, we're an asset management company, so my team is definitely not as big as Google's. So we are a little more agile in that sense. So I wrote a manifesto, and I said, don't optimize for efficiency, optimize for solutions. I think one good thing about the adoption of ChatGPT is because of how much time it can save you, you can spend more time developing yourself as a team member or as an individual. So in part of our manifesto is when you have nothing to do because you're using AI, then do whatever you want. You don't have to pretend to be busy. You can watch YouTube videos at your desk if you want, as long as it's related to what you're trying to learn. It will help you do your job. I think in this part of the world, and I was speaking to a lot of professionals from places like CICC or Haitong, those are large Chinese institutions, is that people always have some kind of spreadsheet open, just even if they have nothing to do, right? Because they want to be seen as they are producing something. But I think one key question I want to ask myself and my team is, why is this necessary? Why do we have to pretend to be busy? Because sometimes when individuals grow, when their capabilities grow, because they save time on other things, it's actually good for the team as a whole. And they get time to think about what they're doing, whether what they're doing is important or not. So I think coming back to the first principle, and the second rule is cut as much as you can. So I think Dan was saying that if you want to have more output, you want to add more people. But at the same time, another way to look at it will be cut as many as you can, cut the process, or even cut the team members. I mean, of course, in today's day and age, maybe we don't want to encourage that. But that's how you find out whether before you had 10 people, now you have 5. Does the company still run? Now you have 3. Does the company still work? If yes, then maybe all you need is three guys or 4 guys. And that's what he did with Twitter. Right? He cut 80% of the engineers, and the company still survived. If not, their ad revenue was what it used to be, but it's due to political reason. It's not due to functional reason. So I think I'm a strong believer in saving time and cutting on both fronts. So I think to answer Dan's question, that's the cultural aspect I'm trying to instill. And I think it's quite unique, especially in a busy market like Hong Kong. We actually provide space for people to sift through their thoughts on a daily basis. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because it goes a bit to the mindset and a bit the culture. So what you're saying, if I'm understanding, is that to apply AI in the right way, it's actually challenging organizations to think first principles, kind of think more deeply actually at a fundamental level what you're doing, which myself, having been in organizations, it's actually pretty hard. You go in and you have all this work ahead of you and you're just doing it. You're just taking the action. It's very, very hard sometimes to really sit back, like you say, and really think about it in a fundamental way and say, you know what, all this stuff I spent 80% of my time doing, actually, should I be doing it? I mean, should I have that morning meeting at all? And I think it is quite hard anywhere to kind of get to that stage. But then you're saying that because of the nature of this technology, you need to start thinking from that angle to deploy it in the right way. So I think that's quite interesting, kind of, at least my reinterpretation of what you're saying. Michael, anything to add to that, or maybe kind of a different angle here in terms of
maybe a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
Maybe just a month ago or so, we had our largest cloud summit ever here in Hong Kong at the Convention Center. Nearly 3,000 people joined. And we also took that opportunity to release a white paper where we talked and shared about how if AI is adopted properly here in Hong Kong by 2030, it can generate $280 billion Hong Kong of economic value. And I personally believe a lot of that sits in increasing productivity. So adding, I think, to some of the stuff that Seth talked about, many of us are probably overworked today. But a lot of the stuff that we're doing probably can be complemented by some of these great LLMs. Personally, I use Gemini 30, 40 times each day to increase my own productivity. And you know what's really funny? When you sit down with a group of leaders and they talk about how they become more productive or how they can really think about the future direction of a company, it's actually they need more time to just think, right? And I think this has really allowed me to spend more time on the problems that really, really matter, right? How do we solve for Google here in Hong Kong, for our users, for our customers, instead of some of the daily admin things that I'm being asked to do, from our internal organization. And I think these are the things that will ultimately lead to even faster economic value for Hong Kong, but also to drive business value for the customers that leverage the products here in Hong Kong as well.
So let's focus on that. So let's now talk about business value. How do we extract business value from this technology? And so we just spent some time talking about maybe the preconditions, right, in an organization to enable this. So now let's kind of start moving towards a second theme here, right, which I'm sure is on all of your minds, okay? Now with this technology, how do I extract real business value from this? Are we seeing the business value? I mean, there are different people that say different things. There's some people that say, you know what, I'm already seeing some benefits in the work that I'm doing. At the same time, I also talk to lots of organizations, and I must be honest, some organizations say to me, we've tried it, I'm not really seeing the value here, to be honest, and so should we double down more, or what should we do? And so there are kind of different ways of thinking about this. And so kind of coming back to the topic of, okay, in the end, for any organization, large or small, how do you extract business value here? And I think maybe, Michael, you want to go first? Just kind of the breadth of what you see, right? Let's kind of focus. How do we extract business value? What are the elements, what are the advice maybe that you would give to the audience here in terms of extracting business value?
Yeah, so when I think about business value, one of the common pitfalls I see is that organizations aren't very clear about the problem they're trying to solve for, right? And very clearly identifying the business objectives that they want to deploy AI against to help either improve the use case or drive a new use case. I think that's quite critical. And as a leader, you need to be very clear at the top about your priorities. That doesn't mean that it can't happen bottom up as well, right? And so once the strategic direction is set, I do think it's really important for the entire organization to experiment, to find different use cases, and to really prove what can and cannot work. If I can share some examples even from our own customer sets here in Hong Kong, if you look at Cathay Pacific as an example, their CTO actually at our Cloud Summit was sharing about how they have 75 different AI models that they've built, and it's generating 100 million of benefit to their organization already. And so they very clearly articulated the use cases that will help. Now, maybe at a more team-based or product team-based level, we work with lots of organizations on marketing and how they can leverage AI to help drive more efficiency. So you've got a local customer like Klook. I hope many of you use their platform. For something as simple as generating headlines for advertising creative, they will use Gemini to generate all of that to be more personalized, more relevant, because it's really hard to predict how people are searching every single day. And so that is just a working team improvement, and they're seeing over 100% increase in business conversions as it relates to some of those marketing campaigns as well. And so I think you'll see in those two examples alone, strategic direction driving value, but also team-based experimentation driving value for the organization as well.
A little bit, if you can say a bit more. I think your point was very interesting. You said lots of organizations that actually do use AI are not clear what they want. And I wonder if you can say what that is, because on the surface it seems, should be clear using this technology, but are there examples where it's kind of, not defined? Is it a matter of, I feel pressure to use AI now, so I'm just kind of using it? But can you say a little bit more about that? Because I think it's quite relevant to.
And maybe I'll just add a minute and I'll pass it over to you, Seth, because I think you're super experienced in this as well, building in real time. I see a lot of experimentation going on, but I don't see the bravery sometimes from leaders to also cancel projects, right? Like if things aren't working. Okay. You kind of need to stop as well, right? I do think that if leaders can do that better, actually they save resourcing, then they can deploy it towards higher value experiments that might be working as well. And I think there's also a time and a place for expansive experimentation on many different things, but very quickly you want to be quite reductive actually on some of the projects as well. Maybe over to you, Seth.
Seth, because I know, Seth, you are already extracting value using AI yourself. Okay, so maybe on this topic, maybe you can share a bit. How do you extract the value?
Some of my personal experiences, because one vision for our company is there are big funds in Hong Kong, like Citadel, Millennium, huge hedge funds, hundreds of portfolio managers, and our vision, now we have about 30 plus researchers. Our vision is to create and manage their amount of AUM, but with 1/100th of the team size. I know that I keep mentioning team size, because in my younger years, I mistook the expansion of my team for the expansion of the company, which are two very different things. And with one additional headcount, especially in trading, especially in quant trading, where you have to communicate the data and the model all the time, and quite often on a one-on-one basis, it's not just the cost of the headcount, but the cost of your time. So I think the past few years, I took the opposite approach, try to find a minimum number of people that I could use. So I think in terms of extracting business value, we were able to use adoption such as Gemini and ChatGPT to replace a lot of the engineering efforts. I'm not saying that I really wanted to replace engineers, but even engineers don't like to debug, right? So if they don't have to do that, then they're happy. And this is just on one side. On the other side, if we are in a business that has to reach out to people, I used to write personalized emails to my investors on a daily basis. And sometimes there'll be a new gentleman, a new lady, and I have to stalk her or him on LinkedIn just to see like what's up. But now I can have a spreadsheet, and based on the spreadsheet, I can tell the AI algo to just search online for this person's information and draft an individualized email. At the same time, pitch our service or product to that individual. So that would save me about 95% of the time. I just have to check. I just have to make sure it's the same person that AI is referring to. So in terms of this kind of pitching volume, it can go up by 50x easily just by using AI. So I think it has to do with how you use it and not whether you use it. Right? So if there's existing business practice that you are extracting a lot of value from, I believe you can double down on that, but with the power of technology. And maybe not with a new hire, maybe not with a new ad spending, but with new technology. Yep.
I think your last point here, it's not how many times you use it, it's how you use it. And I don't know if there's a common situation that I've seen a lot. I think in today's environment, it's easy for companies feel the need to at least try. So I've seen lots of cases where it's not hard to have some pilots. So you have some pilots going around, lots of times small cases. So you have a situation, right? Also, I think, Michael, you referred to, there are lots of pilots, right? But I think the question I'd like to explore with both of you now is, with all these pilots, how do you take it to the next phase? Because we're talking about business value. I think pilots are, it's good to learn. You prove things out. But the pilot itself, it doesn't bring the full value in an organization. And so once you do pilots, you need to take the next phase. How do you scale it to something that then brings business value? And so I guess the question I have for both of you is just, number one, are you seeing this situation? Companies like doing all sorts of pilots, and now you have too many pilots. And then now the struggle is, how do I go from this? Okay, we've done a lot of number of times of pilots, but then how do I use it? Have I learned from these pilots how to use it in general to go to the next stage? So the question is, how do you take that next step to both of you? Just, Michael, do you want to share first?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen from many of our customers, they're building agents across a wide sphere of use cases. So they could be customer service agents, they could be security agents. Many of them, I think, sit in the initial pilot phase. But I do think as you're ready to begin scaling that out, that is a organizational change initiative, right? So it requires training the entire organization on how to take advantage of some of these new customer agents, for example, that you want to use. Imagine you were deploying a new customer service agent in a call center to increase the productivity of your call center from the existing 100 people that you have. You have to train them on the use cases. You got to train them on now the most important specialized use cases that they need to focus on, because they're probably the most complex too, right? When 80% of most customer service questions can be solved by an agent, the remaining 20% gets pretty difficult. And that means actually we need to invest even further to upskill those teams. And so, sometimes I do hear about, hey, as we roll out this technology, there may be, some impacts to jobs and things like this as well. Possibly, but I also think about the reorientation of a job as well. Imagine these 100 customer service agents now are working on the most critical and important use cases, and probably our top customers as well. I think that's incredible for an organization, while also still servicing the remaining 80% of the teams out there with an equally good experience as well. And so if I were to recap, scaling would involve change within the organization, upskilling the teams, and also getting teams out there using it as well.
Really important. Seth, you want to add to that, right? Kind of how do you go from pilots everywhere, different organizations, and then kind of taking the next step and deploying it? And of course, Michael, what you're saying is that it's not about the technology. There are lots of these other elements around it to take that next step. And so maybe on the same topic, kind of what are the considerations to kind of go from pilot to then actually extracting value and scaling it, right? Or some areas that you've seen.
I don't work at Google.
Not Google, but like what you've seen. Yeah, what you've seen.
I'm not as smart, but
you're definitely smarter than me, so it's okay.
Seth, you're a PhD and professor, author, so yeah, too humble. But please go ahead.
Yeah. Because I'll question, why do pilots exist in the first place? And I think in the early stage of Google, there were a lot of moonshot programs. In the past couple of years, they were doing away with that. And I think for my team, I think there is a tendency to try different things and see what sticks. So I was hiring for a large quant team, and when in my earlier years, not that young anymore. So in my earlier years, I will ask each individual to try different things because I will have like 17 ideas. Maybe I should try all of them. But very little pan out. I think it's the same reason why very few pilots actually work. It's because you never get to go deep enough. When people are working on quote-unquote pilots, they know that it's not a core business. It's not a core area. That's not a core emphasis of the company. Therefore, their heart and soul is not in it. So my boss told me to try this, so I tried this. Oh, at the first glance, it doesn't work. Oh, maybe I'll try something else. But I think just like many things in life, raising a child or protecting a marriage, it takes time and commitment and depth to make something work. So pilots stay pilots because they stay superficial. So now I'm doing the opposite way. So say I have 8 people working, 8 people on a team, a quant team. I will ask them to work on a single strategy. And I wanted to go deep. Every day in the chat room, I just say, go deeper. No, how about this? Go deeper. How about that? Go deeper. So they spend months just grinding on one thing, and lo and behold, they were able to extract alpha that other people couldn't find. Because it's like everything else in life, right? It takes a lot of pain and obstacles and boredom to get through the steps. Like this, I use the analogy that we see a wall, we run through the wall. We see another wall, and we keep hitting it until we break through that wall. Other people have to do the same thing. So I think you don't have to be smart. You just have to stay at it most of the time. And I was talking about Huawei, right? At the time, there were like at least 27 different pilots at any given time, even in my area. Because you never have enough manpower to go deep enough. You want to be able to produce a demo so you can show to your boss and maybe show on a quarterly review, I did this, I did that. There's 27 bullet points, but there's no real value add. So I think, I don't believe it's employees' fault. I think it's a cultural thing. You're trying to rush to a result without giving it time to brew. It's like making red wine, right? It takes time, sometimes years. So I think coming back to what I was saying, right? So I wanted to give the team member time to think, time to feel the boredom, because you gotta sit in the boredom for a long time until maybe we can try that, instead of that's the next new exciting thing. Maybe that will work, and they switch projects, and everything starts over again. So I think I also serve as a consultant to some of the financial institutions before. That's always the case. They wanted to use AI, but there's no manpower, there's no budget, there's a very limited time. So we want to see some results in 2 months. 2 months is not even enough to organize data. For example, GS or UBS or HSBC. That's like terabytes upon terabytes of messy data over the years. It takes just a few months just to figure out where the data sits. So I think have a little more patience and persistence and embrace boredom. It will be my recommendation, yeah.
If I can just add one variable to that is time, right? So you talked about some of our bets, being canceled, and I actually think that's totally okay. We have many different businesses within Google, and so our ads business, our cloud business, you need to see immediate value extraction from some of the pilots or some of the tests, and you deploy that quite quickly and you scale it globally to drive immediate value. For some of our longer term projects, we are more willing to incubate and pilot a little bit longer to get it right, to go deeper. If you look at our investments in Pixel and hardware and ensuring that AI is integrated into our phone technology, we know that that will take a long time to continue to build out, to build the brand, but build the right experience also for our users. And if you look even further out at our bets, if you look at Waymo as an example with autonomous driving, that's been one that we've been working on for a very long time, but we see very clear potential there to be a big, large business at some point at Google. And so we're willing to incubate some of those bets even longer, but again, with limited resourcing, you've got to focus, right? And you got to focus on the ones that are showing the most potential and have the most potential value to Google longer term as well. And so, I think across each of these time horizons will also be a factor on how you think about whether your pilot scales now or scales later, or whether you've got to cancel the project, which is a difficult decision for people working on those teams, but then you can redeploy those teams to do something more useful.
Really interesting. I'm going to reflect a little bit what you're telling me, right? And I think, Seth, you're really good. I mean, you're doing first principles, because I think my question was, okay, how do you go from pilot to scale? Seth, you challenged that approach to begin with, right? So I think your core point is, so often in organizations you feel like, hey, look, new technology, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to place multiple bets, right? That seems to be a common approach. Seth, what you're saying is that, that's in some ways could be self-defeating, because you're doing a pilot, right? So you're kind of your heart's not in it, and so you kind of do it in a way that doesn't succeed. But then you check the box. So like the boss is telling you to do that, you've checked the box, hey boss, it doesn't work, and then you move on to the next thing. I've seen a lot of that, right? So what you're saying, Seth, is that instead of maybe a common approach of, okay, let's 20 pilots, it might be better to say, look, this is not a pilot. We see the change, and we're going to go through this, and we're going to persist. This is not a pilot. A little bit, I think, Michael, what you're saying is that I think, yes, place bets, but even in your case, I think Waymo, that's not a pilot. That is real. I mean, in a way, you would say, yes, you're still trying and learning, but that is really a lot of focus, right? Focusing kind of in those areas where, you need to put in, but that it's an area that would, you'll likely see some kind of return, right? So if I reflect back a little bit, that's kind of, what I would say. I got the sign that there's a little bit of time left. Maybe one last question, and then maybe open up, if okay, to the audience. The last question is, on this topic of AI-enabled organization, if there's one piece of advice you want to give to the audience here to help themselves in their organizations kind of come to where they can truly leverage the value of AI, what would that one piece of advice be if you were to give it to the audience here? One piece of advice. I'm going off script, I know, but just kind of.
I'm going to come back to the survey.
One piece.
80% of the audience is using it, but not sharing it, sharing their experience with their teams. And I actually think, as a leader, it is incredible to see people within the organization that come back and share their learning experiences, make the teams around them better. So I would encourage you to go and make your teams better and learn together, because that's how you're going to you really get the whole organization moving behind this.
Great. Seth, would you have any words of advice to the audience here?
We are not organizations, we're individuals. So we have our wants and desires and needs and our family members. So my advice, our advice to my team members too, and also to myself every morning, is to remember your input-output equation. What do you want out of your time? So if you're working in a corporate, maybe you want promotion. If you're a salesperson, you want revenue. If you're a father, you want your son or daughter to become kind and tough and resilient, which takes time. So I try to deconstruct my days and my behaviors. Of course, for 40% of the time, I'm useless, right? I don't think it's humanly impossible to concentrate on one thing for more than 7 hours a day. And for most people, that's like 3 hours on a daily basis. So I try to deconstruct my day into different components. And just for the little time I have my focus with me, my health, my children in this case, and my team members. And of course, I was telling Michael and Dan, like right before I step out of my office to come here, I was reading codes. I was analyzing data, right? Because even I didn't want to do it. 'Cause my daughter started playing piano at 6:30 in the morning. She's got a competition coming up. So 6 morning, I said, what the hell is that noise? And I woke up, I saw her practice. I was like, come on, why are you playing at 6:30 in the morning? I wanted to say that, but I want to say, good for you, great work ethic, awesome. And I woke up and I was really sleepy, but then I remember my input-output equation. Okay, I should be analyzing data. I should be reading the codes. I spend time reading codes so that I know what the engineers are doing. And then I came here. And the reason I came here is I'm speaking on behalf of my team, which will bring to certain output if I do it long enough. So I would say figure out your input-output equation. That could be your health. It could be your family, it could be promotion, could be revenue, and try to eliminate anything or anyone that doesn't service you in that regard. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, even transcending just pure AI topic, right? Thinking about it.
Oh yeah, and
That's really good advice.
And
I think.
do the work with AI. Yes.
No, that's really good. But I got the time. I wonder if there's time for one question, two questions from the audience. If there is there time for that? Okay. Okay. So if you want to take this opportunity with the two experts here to ask any question you want, maybe time for one or two questions. So is there any question from the audience here that you would like to ask on this topic? Any questions? We don't have to. We're at time, but any questions? I see one back there. Okay. All right. Why don't we go to you? I need a.
Okay, so
There's one right
our colleagues can pass a microphone to our audience. Where is it?
Okay.
Could
Thank you.
raise
Yeah,
your
just
hand?
1 second. Yeah.
Okay.
Just the gentleman in the back row there.
Could you raise your hand again? Okay.
If not, you can use mine. I'll walk over and give you mine.
Thank you very much for the very insightful talk. I have two questions actually. So one, I think it's relevant to both the panelists, but more specifically to Michael. The other one is more related to quant finance, which is related to sleep. So the first one is, so you mentioned the first principles and the first principles approach from Elon Musk. But then I've worked in AI before, and I think one of the major hurdles is that AI models are generally inexplainable. It's more seen as a black box. So do you see that the explainability of AI, or rather the inexplainability of AI, as a major hurdle in terms of adaptation, in a wide adaptation in business? For example, you have to explain to customers why the model works, whereas I think most engineers don't even know what's actually happening in the within the AI model. And the second question is more related to quant trading, which is where do you see the future direction in terms of using AI models for quant trading? Because I've also worked in quant trading before, and I think most of the time I use regression models in terms of analyzing the order books. So yeah, I just want to get your opinion across that. So thank you.
Michael first on the first one, and then Seth the next one.
Yeah, it's a good question. We have an interesting saying within Google internally, is that we really believe that technology should do the hard work. Not all of us really needs to understand every single detail of how a product or a service is helpful or improves your daily life, because it should just be helpful. And so, while I think some things are a little bit more difficult to explain, we definitely get some of these questions from our customers. Oh, like, why is this marketing campaign actually performing so much better now? And some of that does take time, I acknowledge. But not everything, I think, needs an explanation, right? When the copy and paste function in your Android phone can identify that you've just copied a phone number and open up the phone app for you to call, I don't think you really worry about why the AI is detecting that and figuring that out. You're just kind of expecting it to work. And so I think there's many use cases where we just want to deliver on a helpful experience, and hopefully our customers will continue to use and leverage our products.
Black box. I think humans are black boxes too, and I work with them just fine. And most of the time, I cannot understand people's decisions. And I still have to deal with them. And you don't understand how a TV remote works, you still use TV remote. I don't know how car engines is built. I still riding cars. So I think like what Michael was saying, we don't really have to understand how things work, but I think if you're referring to the trading area or investment area, and coming back to the first principle, what do investors care about? They don't care. They don't really care whether you're using black boxes or not. They care about profits. So as long as you can deliver profits, they're not going to ask you how you arrive at a profit. It's only when you lose money, your compliance officer starts to freak out. Your investors begin to freak out. So they are not questioning AI. They're questioning your capability to deliver profit at the end of the day. That's what I would think. And coming back to using machine learning for order book, for quant trading, most of the time, so machine learning is an umbrella term, right? Could be regression, could be random forest, could be extreme gradient boosting, could be transformer. You can use all that to model financial data, but it's like you have all these tools. It's like you have a paint and brush, and you give them to a person and say, hey, can you paint something that's like Da Vinci or Picasso or Monet? The person will say, no, because it depends on who is doing it, which team is doing it, and how to do it. It's not about the tools themselves. So in terms of financial data, the noise to signal ratio is extremely high. So I would say 90% of my time is to think about how to eliminate and delete data that I believe to be noise. Of course, sometimes that's subjective. So that's 90% of time is how to delete noise from data, and also how to do backtest. I think how to do backtest is an art and also a science, because at the end of the day, the designing of strategy is to fit data, right? So how can you not fit the data too much? Because data is quite scarce. You only have one history. You can use some technique to simulate and generate new data that's a little bit different to make the model more robust, but at the end of the day, you still have one history. So there are some techniques that we use internally to make sure that doesn't happen, and the same techniques are being used by Citadel as well. And those, how do we arrive at those techniques? Time, and boredom, and mistakes, and blood, and sweat and tears, right? So I think human efforts are still the most crucial part in quant trading, and the reason why I talk about AI adoption so much is that it can replace the boring and tedious part of the human effort so that actual humans can begin to think about the truly crucial and important things in their jobs. And I do believe that it's the most transformative invention in our time, and it's about how to use it. It's not whether it works or not. It's more about whether you can make it work for you at the end of the day. Thank you.
I think that's a very good way to wrap our session today. We are at time, and so unfortunately I can't open up for further questions, but that's a great wrap. And I want to say both Michael, Seth, thanks for spending the time to sit down with us to talk about this important topic that's on everybody's minds. Thanks again. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, our speakers. So please kindly remain on stage, and maybe let's stand up and let's have a photo first. All right, so maybe we can stand in front of the block, in front of the table block, yes. And then please look at our official photographer first for a good photo. And please continue to remain on stage. And now I would like to invite Ms. Christine Lee. Please come up on stage to present the certificates of appreciations to our 3 speakers. Thank you so much, our speakers, for giving us so much insight, letting us know what it means to be AI-enabled organizations and what are the key elements that is needed to harness the power of AI. And I would also like to take this opportunity so our guests on stage can continue to look at our photographer. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, our speaker gift sponsor, Electronic Identity Display Limited. Once again, thank you so much, our speakers. Thank you very much, our speakers. Please kindly exit the stage and be seated on stage. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dan, for moderating this sessions for us.